Welcome back to my reading challenge. If you haven't seen the last video, my wife gave me a reading challenge for my birthday. And the first book that I was reading is My Brilliant Career by Miles Franklin. If you don't know who Miles Franklin is, she is an icon in Australian literature. She has two Australian literary prizes named after her that I know of. One of the biggest literary prizes is called the Miles Franklin Award in Australia, and then the Stella Prize for Literature is the Women's Prize in Australia. Stella being Miles Franklin's name, but she didn't like the name Stella, so she went by Miles Franklin. And I think that was for good reason. I think she didn't want to be labelled as a writer of women's literature, so she decided to use her middle name, which made it more anonymous. And she wrote My Brilliant Career when she was young. I believe she was only 21 when she wrote this book. She sent it off to Henry Lawson, who then helped her get it published. It's a fascinating book. I really love this book. It is semi-autobiographical, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that are comparing her life with the life of the protagonist, Sabella, and there's good reason, but I found this so interesting and so Australian, and I had such a great time reading this book. But I've also seen some criticism of the book, and everyone has their own opinions, obviously, and that's what makes things interesting. I always found it interesting when people would say that Sabella was an unlikable character, because for me, I found her extremely likable, and I kind of question when people call her unlikable. She's a woman that's obviously growing up in Australia. Her parents are poor, and her dad moved them to a country town to start a farm. This is a failing farm, so she found herself really working to support her family. And as a young teenager, she went off to be a governess to a family she hated and really disliked the situation she was in. Her brilliant career to her would be that of a writer, but everyone kept dismissing this as her fantasy and that she needs to look after the family. She needs to pursue goals that will help the people around her, and she must conform, she must marry. And that's what I found really interesting about this book. It's really a look at a person that doesn't really want to get married, doesn't want to be pushed in a way that's not to her benefit. And there was a section in the book where she was sent off to her grandmother, who's a little bit more wealthy, and she's told Sabella to not overlook men, to consider marrying someone, basically. And Sabella's basically her reply was, "Why should I? These men are allowed to go sow their wild oats and then come back and then be considered respectable choices." And she really questioned that idea that men are off doing whatever they're doing to sow their wild oats, but women are meant to still consider them beneficial for marriage after they come back. And there's this real exploration into her wanting to live her life, wanting to make her choices, wanting to be a writer. And it's so fascinating to see this woman in 1901, this was published, writing about making her own choices, picking what her life would be like, and not accepting marriage. Like, she had an engagement well, she called it a trial engagement. She wanted to see if being engaged would work for her. So she accepted a marriage proposal for 3 months as a trial to see if this is something she wanted to pursue. But she quickly realized that this man got jealous of her talking to other men or just living her life. And I think to her, she found out that marriage wasn't really a good choice for her. It felt like she was being owned by someone else. She was just a piece of property. And I just loved that she was always there challenging these social norms and saying, hey, this is not any benefit to me. Why should I pursue marriage? And I think she did love this guy, Henry. I think she was interested in him, but to him, she felt more of like just property and beneficial to his career, never cared really about her feelings. And I think that's why I really enjoyed this book. And I am so glad to have finally read it. I'm so glad that one of the biggest Australian novels out there is so feminist and so interesting and so Australian. But what a great time I had with this one. Now, 1910s is what I'm going to be moving on to, and let's see what my wife has picked for me for this century, for this decade. I don't really want to edit my videos, so I try not to make mistakes. Hey, I'm just going to leave it in. If it works for other people, why not just leave it unedited? And the next one, a Virginia Woolf book, Night and Day. I've read a couple of Virginia Woolf novels and I really love it. I've read To the Lighthouse and Mrs. Dalloway, and I have been thinking about rereading Mrs. Dalloway, but sounds like I'm going to go with Night and Day. This is an Albert classic. I love this collection of books. I've got a whole heap of Russian literature in this publisher's edition, so I'm so excited to see how I get on with Night and Day and read some more Virginia Woolf. Thank you for watching.